Hello everyone, welcome to the Responsible Logistics podcast. Our today's guest is Mark Mulder, Chief Commercial Officer at Girteka. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Since we are moving towards becoming a net zero sector, and in general we're decarbonizing the transport industry, right now I would like to ask you, in your opinion, what is the current status of the decarbonization of logistics industry?
Overall, the logistics industry only just started to embark on the path of decarbonization. That doesn't mean that nothing has been done, but only now, with deadlines in relation to regulation are appearing on the horizon. I would almost say people in the logistics industry are waking up.
And since the journey just started, how do you rate the current progress?
I think the pace is picking up. If you talk to shippers, then most of what they have done has been focused on their own production. And only now they start to focus on where we in the logistics sector can add the final percentages to the overall decarbonization of supply chains.
So what do you think? Are we moving with the right speed, or do we need to accelerate a little bit? Because basically there is not so much time left until 2050.
No, there is not much time left. So I think overall we can say that pace needs to be picked up. One of the challenges that we have in the logistics industry is in relation to the availability of technology, which in essence means that we need to move away from the traditional fossil trucks to whatever the new technology or industry standard will be in the years ahead of us. And that is still a little bit unclear, which also makes that the pace of the decarbonization is still relatively slow.
So technology availability is one of the obstacles for the transport industry. Could you name a few more obstacles, like main challenges on the way to decarbonization?
What will be other, well, technology as said, and that is a very important one, specifically for road haulage. The current technology is limited to, say, roughly 200 to 400 kilometers radius for battery electric trucks. It is around infrastructure availability in Europe. If we do move on the path of battery electric trucks, so where can I as a driver charge my truck when I'm executing a transport? If we talk about other parts of the logistics industry, intermodal, so rail capacity is relatively limited. It's been one of the first changes in the logistics industry as far as decarbonization is concerned. But also there, from a rail capacity point of view, there are limitations. So there are a number of roadblocks still, which we need to take away.
And what about other modes of transport? Because I know you have experience also in sea freight. So maybe you could also comment on this.
Sea freight, I think also the shipping lines are, and if we keep it more close to home for us ferry companies, have a big change to make. You do see at the moment developments into hybrid solutions for instance, ferry companies. There are even now plans to start operating fully electric ferry routes and ferry shipments of ships. If you talk about deep sea shipping, so the large container carriers, there is still a roadblock as far as what the future technology is going to be as well. And it requires huge investments overall.
Do you think it is equally challenging for different sectors to adjust to the new regulations?
Each specific sector in the logistics supply chain will have its own challenges. If you talk about warehouses and warehouse operations, those challenges will be different compared to road transportation, which will have different challenges compared to intermodal operations, or like I said a minute ago, if you compare it to ferry operations or deep sea shipping lines. We have all our separate challenges. And we need to solve them by ourselves, depending on which sector you're actually actively in. But I'm also a strong advocate of partly solving the challenges with our customers, because I think they will play and have to play an important role in the transition as well.
And why?
Because we are in a transition phase, and a transition phase actually means that we need to adopt new technologies, and new technologies come with high initial investment costs. And there I find it important that we co-create solutions with our customers, but also with other stakeholders. Think about OEMs, truck manufacturers, think about trailer manufacturers. And for me, co-creation with those stakeholders is probably the best way to make sure that we keep pace in decarbonization in the supply chain, share risks, share investments, but also share the benefits at the end of the day.
It's a long chain of stakeholders, because I guess it starts with mining raw materials and ends with delivering products on shelves. So it seems like a quite complex idea to collaborate or co-create, as you said. So maybe you have an example of such co-creation?
We have a number of examples in co-creating solutions with a variety of stakeholders. We've developed dedicated solutions for our customers, whereby both the truck manufacturer as well as the trailer manufacturer, as well as the customer, as well as ourselves, have implemented or designed solutions and implemented solutions by implementing battery electric trucks. And yes, the initial investments are higher than when you compare it to what we could offer as a solution on the traditional fossil trucks. But all four parties in this particular case have contributed to a solution. We share the risks on the investments, but we also share the benefits on the investments. We are also, albeit it's still in negotiation or in design, so to say, talking to rail operators and our customers, so in this particular case at least 3 stakeholders, to deploy battery electric trucks in and around railheads where we either deliver or pick up trailers which come or go on a intermodal route. And those are clear examples of how the industry, with all the stakeholders involved, can fast pace the route on decarbonization.
Who do you think should make the first step? Because I imagine not every company is willing to volunteer to share risks and investments.
I would say it depends a little bit, but overall I think the logistics industry themselves should push the agenda. Also given by the fact that European regulations put on the logistics industry have to be met at some point in time. And obviously shippers first focused on, within ESG, on scope 1, because there it is about their own production and what they can do to reduce the CO2 footprint. But with some customers, we're now coming into the phase whereby they've done their bit on scope 1 and actually now look at scope 3, where logistics, transport actually sit as far as their supply chain is concerned. So there you see that the shippers are actually, in some cases, taking the first steps. But overall, I would say that the logistics industry themselves need to be the driver of the agenda.
And scope 1, 2, 3, I assume all, if I'm not mistaken, it relates to reporting emissions.
Yeah, it's related to reporting emissions, but more fundamentally, it is related to how are we as humanity, so to say, are going to reduce the CO2 footprint overall. Correct.
But when logistics companies are implementing sustainable solutions, and as far as I know, the most common ones that are on everyone's agenda right now are battery electric vehicles, intermodal transport, and alternative fuels. So what do you think? How do companies adjust to this change? Those companies that never used these solutions before and decide to implement them because regulations are pushing. What does it mean for a company to implement such solution in terms of operations?
Admitting, recognizing that there is only one way forward, and that is change, because we need to change. Everybody can ask the question and answer the question, will diesel fossil trucks still be in operation in 2050? No, probably not. And that means that we need to embark on different powertrains, whether that be battery electric, whether that be hydrogen, whether that be LNG, or name them all. HVO, obviously, not to forget. But HVO for me is an interim solution on the basis of the fact that we in the industry still run diesel trucks. What the long-term, call it standard accepted technology in the logistics industry will be, I don't know. I've got an idea, but we still have a number of years to bottom that one out.
And what do you think would be the consequences for the companies that are not willing to implement it in 2024?
Well, short term, I think the consequences would not be significant. Other than that, we as logistics operators, we in Girteka, want to work together with those customers who actually are contributing to making these changes as soon as possible. So that at the end of the day, those stakeholders with whom we have created in the early days the solutions will actually have call it a sort of preferential status going forward.
So why do you think some companies postpone the implementation of green solutions?
It's a matter of cost, investments, versus recognizing that not doing anything now will potentially be more costly in the future. Yes, innovation, new technologies always come with an early higher cost because of the investments in new technology. But the payout on the long term, it is foreseen that the call it total cost of ownership will be lower than what we see today. We're all commercial organizations, so also our shareholders are looking at the bottom line results. And some companies do have it in them to actually be in this early stage and invest in this early stage, and others don't. And that is the main differences between those who already embark on this decarbonization route and others who are basically sitting still and wait to see what the developments are going to be.
Postpone as much as possible.
As long as possible, but have, in my mind, a relatively short-term view on the future.
What about those companies that are not sitting still exactly, but thinking to implement it? What do you think they should consider and keep in mind?
Open up the discussions with the various stakeholders who can all collectively contribute to making that first step. I've used the word earlier, co-creation. In this stage, I think it's very important that the various stakeholders sit around the table, see what can be done, share investments, share risks, but most importantly also share the benefits.
And what does it mean in practice for partners to go on a new path toward decarbonization, in business, of course? I mean, implementing new solutions and taking risks together. What does it mean in practice?
What it means in practice is that you need to have a good level of trust between the partners that are co-creating solutions. What it also means in the logistics industry is that we need to accept that designing and implementing those solutions cannot be done on the basis of continuing to be very transactional in the way that we currently, in most areas of the logistics industry, work between suppliers and shippers. It requires, because also of the investment costs, a longer-term view and a longer-term commitment to actually implement new solutions. So I would say trust is a very important element. With trust, obviously, comes the fact that you need to find the right partners in designing those solutions, and the understanding and the commitment that each and every partner in that solution has its own responsibility as well to deliver.
So, as I understand, you see the transactional relationship between suppliers and shippers as the baseline, and co-creation is something that goes on top of that.
Co-creation is very much around getting from a transactional, I would almost say day-to-day operation, to a more value-based relationship, where obviously the day-to-day operation remains very important, but that we all see the bigger picture as to what the whole industry, the entire industry, actually has to deliver. Because regulations set up either by local governments or by Europe, they are on the horizon. And the entire industry, and with that I mean including the shippers, we all need to comply at one point in time.
Because I imagine it is hard to achieve those green targets if you're completely alone and you do not collaborate or co-create with other stakeholders.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how do you see the future development of logistics industry, given the current status and also the regulations? Because the situation will be changing by 2050. I imagine it is hard to give exact prognosis for that, but maybe per your estimation, how do you see the future of logistics industry?
So in 2050, I could also foresee that potentially we move passengers and perhaps freight through Hyperloop systems. There are tests at the moment being done. So yeah, I think the entire supply chain logistics landscape in 2050 will be completely different than what it is today.
And do you think it's realistic, the deadline we have? Will we make it by 2050 to become a climate neutral continent?
It is a challenge. It's only 25 years away, which sounds long, but is actually not that far from us. Whether or not I should say yay or nay, I think we all have a contribution to make to actually try to achieve net zero by 2050.
And speaking more specifically about our industry, the logistics and carriers sector, what kind of support do you think shippers can expect from carriers?
If we talk about Girteka, they can expect a lot of support. We're trying to drive the decarbonization route at maximum speed with still the roadblocks that we face. But we definitely want to continue to have those sustainability discussions with our customers to see where either we can contribute to their supply chains in speeding up decarbonization, where we see potential opportunities within their supply chain to embark on potential new technologies to be tested, to be trialed, and make that part of a strategic plan together with our shippers. So definitely Girteka is trying to push that agenda as much as possible, not only in the interest of the entire supply chain, but also in the interest of the individual shippers, as well as in the interest of Girteka.
Let's imagine the situation that a logistics company invested in a sustainable solution, and it failed. There is no return on investment, or there are no clients that want to implement it in their operations. Something went wrong, and that's it, it's a failure. How do you think companies should deal with such failures?
Accept that failures can happen, first and foremost. And that is why I find co-creation so important. Not only the design of a solution, but also the fact that we accept that it can fail, but that and as a result, the partners in co-creation share the costs if it fails. But by the same token, share the benefits if it not fails. Failing is human, and there's nothing wrong with failing somewhere, as long as we all make sure that we mitigate as much as possible failures. And we're in the industry with relatively low margins, so we can't afford to fail, basically. And that is why, again, in a transition period, we at Girteka find it so important to co-create those solutions with the various stakeholders. And again, share the risks, but definitely share the benefits as well.
But how do you define the co-creation? Because it seems like a very interesting concept, and it seems quite universal because it can be applied to any level, to colleagues, to partners, to families, right?
It can be copied in any part of society. If you look in organizations in isolation, with various departments, whether it be financial, operational, commercial, you name them. In isolation in an organization, you co-create something which we sell to customers. In business to business, you can you can and actually should, in the whole decarbonization route, also co-create solutions, but that's between businesses. Personal lives, definitely, I do that daily with my wife.
That's a beautiful concept. So, since we're coming to the end of the episode, I would like to ask you if you have any personal message that you would like to share with our listeners.
What I would like to share is that it is a responsibility from everyone in society to contribute to decarbonization. And as we are all, let's say, in the early phases of actually realizing that we need to pick up the pace, the only way that can be done, in my mind, is that we work together, that we understand what needs to happen, but that not any organization in isolation can do it by his or her own way. So again, collaboration, co-creating, for me is definitely the main theme in the years to come.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the discussion and for finding time to join us on our podcast.
Most welcome.
I would also like to thank our listeners for joining us for today's episode. If you want to learn more about sustainability, please visit our website and follow us on social media. I will see you next time.